Okay, I should be doing the nutmeg thing, but my waistcoat isn't buttoned up right. These guys didn't warn me that it was all, So there you go. Okay, welcome.
I was the only one to say, hey, John, your waistcoat.
Welcome to the Nutmeg Tavern. Today is Friday. It's Nutmeg Friday. I think it's on the national calendar, isn't it? I'm pretty sure of it.
It should be.
Today is Nutmeg Day, so happy Nutmeg Day. And we got lots of fun stuff to talk about today. Ryan's back there, finally doing something.
Hello.
So behind the scenes here, I'm John Townsend. I always forget that. Our what do you call yourself?
I'm a bartender.
That guy back there, Ryan. And behind the camera is Aaron on the console, and he's doing the super chats and making everything work right. Because, it's always busting, right? And Kyle is on the question seat again, finally back. We got everybody back where they belong. Now everything's going to run smoothly.
We've actually already had a couple super chat donations, so thanks.
Yeah.
Wow, thanks, guys.
Thank you guys so much for that.
Yep.
Where do we start today? I don't know. Do we have a question to start out the day?
Yeah. Did they cover the barn walls with something after the main structure was erected?
Yeah. So this was intended. We're talking about the log barn videos. It was part 1 and part 2. That I think part 1 was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then part 1 was this week on Wednesday. He's going to fix something. He's still messing with everything. Anyway, they purposefully put very large gaps in there so that there was air movement through there. That barn is really kind of intended to keep you out of the weather from snow and from rain, but they kind of purposefully had that so air could flow through that in that barn situation. So they do not intend to actually cover those outside edges. Like the outside walls with anything, it's just going to have those gaps in that. Now, if they were building a cabin, they were going to live in it, obviously they would have cut those notches deeper and set those logs down as close as they could to each other so that they didn't have to fill in as much gap. And if you look at sort of finished log finished log cabin, as in from Finland, they seat those right down on top of each other. And some of those other European, Northern European cultures that make log cabins, they really work at making almost no gap or no gap at all. So, hope that answered it. What else? Do we have another quick one?
Yes, we do. Are you going to treat the wood on your cabin with pitch or anything?
Yeah, generally that isn't necessarily done to any great extent. They just let them weather. The log cabins like that were not intended, especially that first log cabin. It wasn't intended to be a long-term structure, so you wouldn't bother to paint it or do a lot of outside things to it. Later on like log houses, they might paint them or they might side them almost immediately to protect the outer sides of that and to keep it from weathering. But those first generation log cabins, you first get there and you build something really quick, you're not really worried about it lasting for any great amount of time. And that's why we don't have very many of those kinds of structures around today.
Hey, do we want to talk about what Ryan's making?
Yeah, Ryan.
What you got, Ryan?
It's not, I think he's burning. He's burning stuff. He's burning stuff back there.
It's hot back here. I'm making hot chocolate.
Okay.
Yeah. It won't possibly. It sounds like. it sounds like I might not be making.
If
hot
the set
chocolate.
catches on fire, you guys tell me, right? In the chat or something, so I can run out of the building.
The plan here is to make hot chocolate. You see, and that's what I'm working on right now.
Good. Yeah. So hot chocolate was a chocolate drink. Was very popular for breakfast drinks in the 18th century. It gets much more popular as the century goes on. So that's what he's working on today. And actually, you're basing this off of one of the cooking episodes we did, I don't know, probably 3 years ago with Ivy. I think that was a series I did with chocolate things and Ivy. It was fun.
Yeah. So right now I'm working on. I've got about I don't know, probably 10 ounces of water and a pipkin with chocolate, and I'm cooking that into a syrup.
Okay.
Add some sugar, and then I'll heat the milk up, bring it to a simmer. We'll put it in the chocolate pot, froth that baby, and we'll have some hot chocolate.
That'll be fun. Hey, why don't we go straight to Instagram? Can we do that?
We can do that.
Aaron's ready for that,
ready.
right?
I'm
Okay,
ready.
so every week we kind of pour through the Instagram stream. We do that basically throughout the week, but we generally toward this time, toward Friday, we try to find something, some interesting image that's happened throughout the week that's been hashtagged with Townsend's in it, something that has to do with history or with Townsend's merch or with a recipe or anything that's basically related to what we do here on the channel. We pick out one of those that we think is really fun and we show it here on the channel, and then we send them something. Ryan DMs them and they get a gift certificate, or who knows, something really weird that we send them that we find lying around here. So who's this week's winner?
It's Rebecca Percoca,
Okay.
and she made a Cheshire pie. Well, somebody that cooked for her and made a Cheshire pie.
Okay.
And there were actually 2 Cheshire pies this week in Instagram, which was pretty nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, it
It's
looked
like pie
they had
week.
and they roasted a pumpkin as well, or baked it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a great, interesting combo. Sounds like fun. So thank you, Rebecca.
Yes.
It was Rebecca. So thank you, Rebecca. Wonderful. So, we had a lot of questions about the barn that was being constructed. And do you have part of the story you want to tell about that? Ryan was I went down 2 separate weekends. Ryan was there for the big weekend. That first video was all done. And did you have comments that you wanted to say about that, Ryan?
Yeah, I thought that it was pretty incredible.
Hey, Ryan, get on your mic.
That's it. I thought it was pretty awesome to go into a group of people that I didn't know. You had worked with Jim in the past on
Right.
some videos,
Yeah.
and maybe another member or two. Martin Station was just a couple of weeks before that, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah,
something like that?
2 weeks. Yeah, I think so.
And I met these fellows for the first time, and I happened by their campfire one night, so I got to know them a little bit. But it was really cool to go in and meet a group of people that are really good at working together already, and seeing how much ground they can gain in a short amount of time, how well they work together, and just kind of know. It was neat seeing somebody higher up working on the top logs reach down, and the next guy knows exactly what tool he needs before he even says it, and they're just getting to a groove together and go. And it was really neat to be part of that.
Yeah, it was a fun process to watch, and of course, there was a lot of prep work that we didn't necessarily see. All the acquisition of the logs, getting ready for that, planning for that, and really we just kind of jumped in at the last second. They're like, "Hey, in 2 weeks, we're going to be building this barn. You guys want to come?" And it's like, "Okay, we're going to do it." So we jumped right in and participated in that, and everyone was so kind and helpful, and really bent over backwards to help us out with that. So great project, and really kind of spurred us on to some more projects that we've been doing recently. And there'll be some things, some videos. I think the log structure video that we've done is probably going to be next spring. Is that how that one we kind of planned
we
for
never
that?
really kind of locked in. It was something like that.
So we've already shot some videos that relate to that one. Learned a lot through that process, and you've seen that structure that we built showing up in some of the videos we've done in the last month or two. So another one of those great projects. Do you have any more specific barn questions, Kyle?
Yeah. Let's see here. What kind of logs were used, and how was it dry, or how did they dry the logs?
Okay. So the logs, generally those structures, one of the most popular species for that is tulip poplar. And tulip poplar is basically, as far as I'm concerned, the perfect log for those kinds of structures because they're fairly light, they grow very quickly, they're very easy to work in their green state, and still strong. So you don't need giant tractors to lift these logs into place, and they're very easy to work, but yet are still strong enough. It isn't like a balsa wood or something. So it's a great species to work with, and it replenishes itself very quickly. So it's not one of those, I cut down a 100-year-old tree and it isn't going to grow back. They grow like weeds in a lot of different places. A lot of them are growing on our property. So they're a really perfect resource for that. And as for the drying part, these things are built green, and they kind of dry and shrink down into place and kind of settle into place. So you don't really have to worry about drying them up beforehand. They age quite well.
I'm gonna do some donations.
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, and sorry for the lag, everyone. We were having some
Technical issues.
Yep. I'm gonna real quick read the ones that came in chat before we were live. $2 from Trent.
Thank you, Trent.
Thank you, Trent.
Thanks, Trent.
$5 from Michael.
Michael, thank you.
Wife and I love the channel. Keep up the great work.
Great.
Hashtag more Nutmeg Tavern mugs. Oh yeah, for sure.
It's not a Nutmeg Tavern mug. He'll deliver that. We still have some of the white nutmeg chocolate mugs, Nutmeg Tavern mugs. I got chocolate in there for some reason. White Nutmeg Tavern mugs. They're on the website. Aaron might come up with a link for you and toss it in the chat. There's still some of those guys left, and we'll be working on there's special mugs on order now for Christmas. They'll be a little different and I think really cool. So let's hope they get here by Christmas.
Mm-hmm. And then €5 from Timothy Keys.
Thank you, Timothy.
Appreciate it. It's my fiance's Lucia's birthday today. It would be truly awesome if you could share in her day by sending her good wishes. Yeah, happy birthday.
Yes, and happy birthday and good wishes. And boy, aren't you fortunate to be born on Nutmeg Day?
Is that real? Is it really? Oh yeah, it's real. It's real. Oh no, we're lagging. Oh no, hang on. Let me fix this output thing.
The lag's gonna mess up all the good jokes.
I know.
And then $10 from Max are cool. Yeah.
Yes,
man,
Max. Thank you.
Here we go.
You talked about the need to keep vegetation down around buildings to reduce moisture.
Yeah.
Did people also cut the grass around buildings for the same reason? Did they do it with a scythe, scissors, or sheep?
I think all of those, and especially the first one and the last one, you would have livestock that would be up and around your house at different times. And sometimes you even read about, depending on where you're at, sometimes we always think about fences keeping livestock in their pens, all right, or in their fields, right? But in the 18th century, many times fences were to keep the livestock out of your yard because they would get in there and eat up your garden or whatever. And fences were all about keeping everyone's stuff out of your field. But yeah, you might harvest that stuff. I would imagine that a lot of times around your house, you're working around that so much that you're beating the grass down, so there isn't as much trouble with tall grass. We just go out in our lawns today, and about the only thing we do is mow it, so it gets a chance to grow tall. But they had other ways to keep their grass shorter.
And then one more for now. €10 from, this is a really easy name.
Yes.
It's rienimeredojezo.nl.
Good.
You.
Good.
Hello there. Would you ever consider making a video about medicine from the 18th century? We are a medical company from the Netherlands and love the way you share your passion.
Great.
Makes us happy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so we've covered we did a live stream on scary medicines. We did a video there's like some herbal medicine video that we did with the folks down at Conner Prairie. And there's an interview with a doctor that we did several years ago. Somebody who does
That is throwback.
Yeah, that's a throwback. But
we even tried to do one recently. And
with
cut together right.
Yeah.
We'll
do our very best. But definitely, more medicine is on the list of to do for this coming season.
It's a short list.
Yeah,
not much on it.
It's
so before we move into more questions,
Yeah.
I know that there were a ton of questions in the thread on the new barn video, and I know you wanted to take some time to talk about that. So let's think real quick about some things that people were asking about that and how we should
Well,
answer that.
the topic of nails came up, and people were asking about nails and the trouble with nails and nails it's an interesting thing. We think and it's kind of funny, the video that I did that talked about poor people and William Byrd's description of a particular person who built the pen of his house, the walls, but didn't put on the roof because he didn't have the money for nails. And I said in the video that he didn't have the skills to be able to build his roof without nails. On purpose, because you can figure out a way to build a roof without nails if you really want to, but it isn't going to work as well. You can peg your shingles on, but can you imagine how much time it would take to drill the hole and peg each and every shingle on? You would have months and months in just putting the roof on your house. Nails are an expedient that make it a lot easier, a lot faster. It was really nice that Jamie Tyree, the blacksmith, popped in the chat or in the comment section and actually was talking about English-made nails being imported. They weren't that expensive and they were very prolific. So people did have access to nails. They, while they may be expensive, they weren't not impossible to purchase, and so very popular for putting on your roof. And they used nails in this barn because they did not have months and months to, try to figure out how to peg this together. And they needed that roof to work without a whole lot of maintenance. Jim was talking to me about the roof toward the end of the project as they were roofing it, and saying that bark, if it wasn't nailed on in any kind of way, which many of them may not have been, they would have just been weighed down, like you could see with the logs. Every time you got a windstorm, you'd have to go up there and redo your roof. Well, they didn't want to have to do that at this site, so they went ahead and nailed them down, even though they might not have needed to nail them down quite as much. Did you have another question that popped into your head?
On the same note, for me, it was like, it seems like if you're going to spring for nails, the roof is the place to do it.
Yeah.
But I know that those roofs weren't made to last. They knew that they were going to be changing them. So they're trying to salvage nails because you're not going to leave on material that's going to rot. So they're taking all of that off every time they add to, correct?
Yeah, but I think if they would have to redo the roof, that was one that they didn't actually need to use the nails on.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I thought the project was it was incredible to see.
Yeah, so
it all
Aaron,
come together. I was so much footage.
Yeah, he had 1,000,000 miles of footage to work with. We went into the project because it was a very short-term project, and we didn't know then what we know now, which is always true. We shot a lot more footage than because we didn't know exactly what it was going to turn into. We shot a lot of footage so that we could turn it into several different kinds of things. So hats off to Aaron for turning those into cohesive, good, consumable pieces of video because it wasn't an easy job.
Well, it was a learning experience all the way around.
Yes,
I'd never really worked with a camera before.
Yeah.
We hadn't gone into a project like this or shot like this at all. It was
right.
It was completely a learning experience, and I'm really happy with how it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. I mean, it definitely is one of those things where you shoot more than what you need, and it makes it more tough on the end. But, sometimes you might not get the great shots unless you're shooting tons of footage.
Yeah.
And, it was fun to try something different with the kind of, silence and just the Foley and not a lot of talking. And, it was a fun experiment.
That kind of video doesn't necessarily fit YouTube as well. I mean, YouTube in general is looking for kind of higher intensity, shorter kinds of videos. We've got another long kind of video that's scheduled in the future. Boy, I can't wait to see how that's accepted.
That's going to be interesting to see how that one is received. But I think the content is great. So let me read some donations real quick.
Please.
I just got a couple.
Go ahead.
Hold up. 7 pounds from David Greek.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
David?
And then $20 from Joe.
Okay.
Joe Pergo Lizzie the Third, I believe. I think he's donated before. I probably just butchered the name, but
Thank you, Joe.
appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
You guys are honestly the most wholesome channel on YouTube. Thank you for everything. Throwing an Oktoberfest party this weekend. Wish you guys could come. I'll be sure to have a drink on the Townsend's team. I wish we could come
Joe,
too. That sounds
hopefully-
I wish I
awesome.
could be there. Why don't you mail me a drink and I'll drink with you?
And you should have beer soup too, with nutmeg. That's
I'm
what it was
telling you,
missing.
That beer soup.
See, everyone could. I said interesting. I shouldn't have described it as
Well,
interesting.
it was interesting. It definitely was.
Yeah, but it was good.
It was very
It was
good.
good.
Yeah, everyone
And
should
people
try it
took
out.
interesting
It's
as
just not
not
what you
good.
expect.
Not
Like,
at all.
I expected something bitter.
I
Yeah.
actually saw a comment. Someone said they made it and they did not like how it turned out. I'm trying to think of what we added extra. That was probably like we took a little bit of liberty.
Love. That's what it
Well,
was.
we had some
even if it turned out exactly like we had it, I can totally see people not liking it. It's not what you expect it to be.
It was interesting. I don't know if that's been said yet.
So along with the super chat, other people support us through Patreon, and Patreon is one of those ways where people support us a little bit each month, like $2 or $5 or whatever. Actually, anybody, you can choose any amount you'd like. We have some new Patreon supporters just this week, and so I thought I'd read off their names. We've got Martha Curtis, Michael Mikowski, I'm sure that's how you say it. Theodore Miller, Melody Pettit, Kelly Keener, Laurel Teal, Russell, James Patrick, and Delia Morales. I don't know if I got that name right either. But wow, thank you guys so much for supporting us in that way. A bunch of people support us with Patreon, and guys, you really help us know exactly what we can do in the future when you support us in that way. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate everyone on Patreon.
Yes.
Yeah,
How is that coming?
it's almost there.
Oh, I'm ready.
Because
Yeah.
I'm
Now it's
ready.
Right now it's warm. I mean, it's blood warm. But
Yeah.
do you want hot chocolate or warm chocolate?
I want it right.
We can smell it over here, and it smells amazing.
Well, I'm not making any for the people on the other side.
Oh, that's
Wow.
too bad for them.
Wow. All right.
He's worried that they would spill it on the console and short out the
Yeah,
live
that's
stream.
what-
And
We don't want that to happen.
let's see what other kind of great questions that Kyle has.
Okay, so there we go. Would the log barn be good for homesteading or not?
Would it be good for homesteading? I wonder what you mean by homesteading. Living in it, or what a homesteader would need for their it. I mean, today, if we were choosing how to build a structure, we have access to dimensional lumber that would be quicker and less expensive, or at least time intensive to construct. So I don't know that it's a efficient way for a modern structure to be built. So I would say that if you're in a homesteadery kind of situation, a modern thing, and you have more access to dimensional lumber, that would be the way you'd go, and you'd build, you could build a pole barn, or you could build, just a regular frame barn. But if you have a whole bunch of tulip trees that are about yay big around, hey, go for it.
You were talking about nails. What type of nails were they using? Cut nails, wire nails, Roman nails?
The nails they were using, I'm not sure what brand those guys. They could have been Tremont nails. So Tremont Nail Company makes reproductions of period nails. Now, period nails would have been made one at a time by a blacksmith. They could do them very, very quickly, but it was still a very labor-intensive process. Today, Tremont Nails makes period-looking nails out with more modern methods. So I believe they were like Tremont Nails if they weren't Tremont Nails.
What do they use for roofing?
So this roof was constructed with slab boards that went vertically, and then tulip bark that was stripped from the tulip trees that were the lower part of the structure. And there is, I think we need to re-edit. Remember the video we took down that has the felling and the bark stripping? We need to cut that. Stop giggling back there. He's giggling.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We're going to take that video and we're going to take off the part that needs to be taken off,
We've never.
and then we'll re-release it because it has a really good section on stripping. And you can see some of the stripping going on in the first Log Barn video. They took the bark off that, and that's the bark that was used later on as the roofing material. And tulip bark is incredible stuff.
Are you talking about when that tree almost fell on?
No,
Jeez
that's
Louise.
not the.
When I
Man,
attempted
there's
to
some
save
really
your
good
life
questions
by holding the
today.
tree up, that was, yeah.
Questions are good.
Yeah, good questions. Great. How's it?
How frequently would settlers build stockade forts?
How frequent? In that like Kentucky settlement time period in the 1770s through 1780, they were building stockades all the time for protection. So I'm not sure what it looks like at other times in other places. Obviously, every kind of region and situation, sometimes those stockades are very important to a settlement area. I know that they had the same kind of thing going on clear back at Plymouth Plantation. So it's pretty typical for them to build a kind of a stockade setting if it's a group of settlers together in one location.
Let's see. Do you know anything about Missouri in the 18th century?
Missouri in the 18th century? No. Was it Missouri? Remember that gentleman we met at Alfam, and they had a historic site that was 18th century? Was that Missouri?
No, that was Arkansas.
Oh, that was Arkansas. There you go. So, nope, I don't have anything for you. Missouri, 18th century.
Will you ever do more about costumes and clothing manufacturing?
Let me back up on that. Hold that thought.
Gotcha.
I'm very sure that Lewis and Clark in 1804 was stopping in St. Louis. So but I don't know enough about St. Louis to answer what's happening in the 18th century. But there certainly is something happening there at the very beginning of the 19th century. Now go. What was that again? Sorry.
Will you ever do more about costumes and clothing manufacturing?
Yeah, we will do our best. I deal with clothing like every day, all the time. We've been working on updating the frock and the hunting shirt kind of products here recently, and a new knapsack, and so it's just one of those topics that I'm working in all the time, and I don't ever think about making videos about.
Have a question about the oilcloth tarp you recently made. Was that application meant mainly for long-term shelters, or would people haul it with them? I made a 10 by 10 tarp that weighed almost 151 pounds.
Wow.
Oh, wait. Whoa. Sorry, I misread that. The one in the L looked the same.
Good.
15 pounds.
There, that's
15.
better.
He
That's
meant to say
better.
it was 351 pounds.
It's like, wow, must be thick paint on there.
That's a tarp.
Yeah, it was heavy. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we don't use it today. We have so many products that in the 18th century they were wonder products, and by now we're thinking this is horrible. How would they ever have used this? Is weighed too much. It doesn't. Its characteristics aren't. Well, that's why we invented all these great modern. When we use Gore-Tex fabric or nylon or whatever, super light tents. We just aren't used to the kinds of things that they had to deal with in the time period. So a tarp weighing 15 pounds that you would have to haul, yeah, they would have dealt with it if they needed that kind of protection from the weather. I think that most of the time they lived with a very light amount. I mean, they just didn't bring a lot of things like that. So.
Where is the Nutmeg Tavern? Is it open for business? I'm in the dark.
Oh, shoo. The Nutmeg Tavern is a virtual tavern, and you're there right now. You can't visit it any more than how you're visiting it now. Unfortunately, it isn't a physical. Well, you're allowed
The
that.
Nutmeg Tavern has a top-notch bartender.
I'm gonna put him on
He's
mute.
Mr. Loud. So it lives in the virtual world. Here on YouTube, the physical isn't something you can necessarily visit unless you want to come visit the store and break into the studio and see it.
Please don't do that.
Why does the counter have bars? I believe they're talking about the bar behind you. Was that a common design for taverns?
Yeah, many times taverns were an ordinaries, inns in the 18th century in North America. They were basically, if you had a big house that was on the way someplace, it was on a road, you might open your home to commercial travel. So people would come in, and you might let people sleep in the tavern or sleep in rooms in the tavern. And since it was sort of do you have something for me? He's got something for me.
Do you make any for us?
No, sorry about that. Sorry. They would if you were going to be serving alcohol and you wanted to protect that area of your house so people couldn't break into it. Obviously, I mean, anybody can break into anything if they really want to. But they would have a bar area that's like this, have bars up, and have a way to close that off so that when you weren't in the room, it was protected from people just reaching in there and grabbing stuff off of it. So very common. If you look in illustrations of the 18th century, there's some sites that are like that where we can still see bar types of things being built. But most of that is sort of illustrations that you can see of 18th century style bar settings like that. Very typical.
I will say that I wish there was a little more chocolatey.
Then you just add more chocolate.
Probably ruined it for you now.
No, it's perfect. It just needs one thing.
Yes, figured.
Rum.
Oh man.
No. It's National Nutmeg Day.
Oh yeah. Can the unedited version of the tree felling be made available to Patreon supporters?
Yes, it could. That is an excellent idea. I'll work on that.
How did they make rope back in the Revolutionary time?
Rope is a great and interesting and huge topic. It was a very big industry in North America as well as in England. And, there was, in fact, sort of different regions that specialized in that. One of the regions that specialized in rope sort of converted from rope to netting in the 18th century because rope started being imported from like Northern Europe. So rope is one of these great topics. There's some really, really good pictures in Diderot's encyclopedia where you can see sort of the very technical aspects of what it would have looked like to have the rope walk, where you have to twist small bits of the rope together and then, bring the three big twists together. And then you might even take, multiple pieces of rope and twist them into a cable, and you'd make a giant rope out of it. Well, a giant cable out of it. It's one of those very kind of hands-on professions in the time period, and sometimes you had boys working on the small portions of it, and then I don't know. It's hard to explain just explaining it, but there's some really, really good pictures, and boy, if I had 15 minutes, I could show them to you.
This one says, thank you for providing such a great educational and fun channel. If somebody would want to study food history, where would you suggest they start?
There's some really good books on food history. And I think C. Wilson's book, which is Food from the Stone Age to the 19th Century... History of Food. That's a really good one for foods in England, which kind of works for the 18th century concepts work for North America in some ways. Obviously for the English folks who've moved here. But food history in general is a huge topic, so you really kind of have to focus in on a particular time and a particular place if you can, or else there's just way too much to learn about food history and the differences between different little regions. So I generally spend most of my time in 18th century cookbooks because I like looking at exactly what they were writing about. it's really good to start off with modern interpretations, where like the Wilson book, where she explains the food history. And then once you get a grip on kind of what's going on, then you start to look at the period books, and then you can kind of form your own opinions about what's really happening with food in the 18th century.
Ryan, this stuff's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Ryan gave me mine in a bowl.
He ran out of cups.
The bartender's not keeping enough clean glasses back here.
Just terrible.
I need to talk to the kitchen staff.
Let's see. How popular were currant buns in America?
Currant buns in America. You'll see references to currants showing up, and we're talking about the Ribes currants. Currants are, we have 3 or 4 videos that have to do with currant jelly and talking about currants in boiled puddings, and currants can be 2 different things in the 18th century. They can be a bush with a little berry that grows, red currants, white currants, black currants, or there are what we call today Zante currants, which are actually little tiny grapes that came from the Corinth area, and they were also called currants. We don't know why there's a confusion there and why there are 2 different things that show up, and it can be very difficult in a recipe to figure out which one they're actually referring to. We know that they had currants in North America very early. Did they show up in bun form? Probably. That's beyond. I don't have any evidence beyond that.
How do you find your clothing seamstresses?
We find our clothing seamstresses. Generally, we ask all the other people that are working in the building, hey, do you know anybody who wants to be a seamstress?
Right.
Occasionally, we actually advertise for them and put out one ad and say, hey, are you a seamstress? But a lot of times it's just a personal connection. If you're a seamstress kind of a person, you might know someone else who's interested in that.
I think by and large, too, with seamstresses, they tend to stick around quite a while.
Thank goodness.
We don't have to go trying to hire one every
It's a
month
lot
or
of training for the kinds of things that we sell. So, making knee breeches is not easy.
Every once in a while, I'll have somebody stop in the store just looking for work, too.
Yeah.
That's worked out a couple of times.
Yeah. So, all kinds of ways.
Another question about seamstresses. Do your seamstresses plan on making any patterns to sell, or is there a source that I can access?
There are a couple of different pattern companies. Canucks Corner, I think they're in Ohio. What's the other one? Janice Ryan's Patterns. I think Smoke and Fire has some different patterns they offer for sale. There's several different pattern companies. Two Tailors. There are
12 Thy Children is one. For
Yeah.
kids.
So there are a number of different pattern companies out there that are selling patterns, and so generally, if you poke around, you can find those guys that are offering patterns for sale. We do offer some patterns, but working up engineering patterns that are good, made with the directions and all that for regular public to be able to interpret can be a lot of work to do, and it would be a duplication of effort that other people are already doing.
This one says, just logged on. Has anyone asked about the Feast of the Hunter's Moon? Are you all going this weekend?
Thank you. I was going to forget that. Boy, perfect question. We
No.
are. No,
No,
what?
sorry.
Yes, we're going to be at the Feast of the Hunter's Moon. There's going to be a whole bunch of us at the Feast of the Hunter's Moon. Saturday, Sunday, Ryan's going to be there. Maybe some of his kids. Kyle will be at the feast. I'll be there. Ivy should be there. So
There's going to be somebody from every department except
Josh will be
Josh?
at the Feast of the Hunter's Moon.
And
So-
Nicole will be there, who's a seamstress.
Right.
So if you've got seamstress questions,
Right.
I don't
there
think you
go.
understand how rare it is
Yeah.
that Josh is going to be.
I was going to
at
say,
an
if you're
event.
coming
That is
out, you should probably come out just to see Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're in sort of this middle of Indiana, maybe from Illinois in that center section. Nobody lives over there in Illinois, Danville or whatever. Anyway.
Oh my goodness!
Well, I mean, everybody that
Northern
anyway.
Illinois.
Made fun of
and
our
then they cut it
Illinois
off.
viewers.
It's wilderness.
If you live
5
anywhere,
people just took their donations away.
Yeah.
if you live anywhere close to Lafayette, come and visit us at the Feast of the Moon. It's a huge event. Lots of things going on. Vendors and demonstrations and craftspeople. Wonderful event. We've been going for 35 years. I don't know. Forever. We've been going to the Feast of the Moon. Really great event.
Is that Lafayette,
Yes, West Lafayette.
Indiana?
Yes.
Indiana.
Right there by Purdue University.
Come say hello.
Yeah. It's a
Yes,
good
we would
time.
love to see you.
I'll go ahead and give you a heads up that John's probably going to be walking around a lot, so you might have to look for him. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll probably set up a couple times when it's like, I promise I'll be at the
Yeah.
tent at 2 o'clock or whatever.
It's always a little disappointing when folks come and then it's like, oh, I don't know where John is. I
Yeah.
haven't seen him for a while.
Yeah.
Well, Josh and I will both be in the tent probably most of the day, so come
Yes.
see us.
Yes, they'll be trapped.
Yeah. How many days did it take them to build the log barn, and how many? Compared to how many traditional days it would have taken?
Well, it's all about the number of people you've got to work on it and the amount of training they have. So if you got a whole bunch of people and they don't know what they're doing, it could take a long time. We spent, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the first weekend and Friday, Saturday for the next, probably 5 work days. We had some rain in there. You saw that both times.
Yeah.
In fact, it kind of almost flooded us out the first
We
weekend.
lost over a half a day to rain.
Yeah.
One time.
So there was rain there that was set back, but the logs were already collected up. So, I mean, depends on where you want to start the idea of the process and end it. There were still some doors to be put on to the barn even after the 5 days. They had some engineering about what they wanted to do with the interior doors. But hey, it's like a house that never gets totally finished. Barns can be like that too. But and how many people were there?
Ebbed and flowed, but I mean,
12,
30?
15.
Well, and
But
that was another
working
thing.
hard
Okay,
on it, yeah.
there's its core group of people, and
Yeah.
then there are a bunch of people that have never done it before that are learning how.
Right.
And so, on one hand, you can say, "Oh, well, more people, that means it's going to go faster," and on the other hand, it's like, "Oh, well, they're stopping to teach people." So, I don't really
Yeah.
know.
I think both times it was like a hardcore of say 6 to 8 people, and then another 10 people that were helping some. So I think both times it was kind of like that.
Yep.
Will there ever be a period correct hunting video made? As a hunter, I would love to see how much we have changed.
Wow. There might be something coming up. There might be. And boy, if I could have blocked out the time, I have this opportunity. Maybe someday I'll have this opportunity to go moose hunting in a period fashion. We'll
Yeah.
see though.
The problem with
We'll
these
see.
questions is it's what do we want to do versus what
Yeah.
do we have time and what the ability to
Yeah.
do.
Right.
So,
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm divided. I do the channel and then I do the business, and so it's not easy.
How did they dress newborns?
Swaddling clothes, or they had little gowns, basically infant, sort of like the ladies' chemise, which is a very simple gown. That's what you would put an infant in.
yep.
Who made the Nutmeg Tavern sign? A local artist, or was it in-house?
The graphic, I looked at multiple period images, picked out kind of what we wanted for the sign. We sent that off to a graphic designer. He came up with the design, and then Lauren, my daughter, did the actual transferring that to the wooden board. But it's a lot of people putting a lot of work together there.
The same graphic designer has been the person that designed all of our T-shirts so far.
Right.
He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
So it almost feels in-house at this point because he does so much work with us.
What type of bean did you use in the baked bean episode?
Oh,
That was
we used a
only
couple different ones. I
5
believe.
years ago. How many?
Oh, longer than that.
I just watched it recently. They were pale.
Yeah.
Did you use navy beans?
I think they were navy beans. You know, at home though, we like to use black beans, and I really enjoy the ones made with black beans.
Did we do black beans in that one? We did two different baked beans.
I think they were just a kidney
I think
bean.
that the difference was the meat that you used in the sweetener. I think the beans were the same. I know one of
Yeah.
them used syrup and one of them used molasses.
Yes,
right?
That's
yes,
what it was.
exactly. And the
Right.
molasses turned them even
And I
darker.
think that there was a different quantity of meat in one versus the other as well.
Right.
That was one where we struggled to get that lid off. Because
Yeah.
that was, I think it was the molasses
Yeah,
had
it
like
sealed that.
sealed the
Oh,
lid.
is that
Sealed
right?
the lid
Yeah.
on. Yeah, it was. I think we actually broke the pot getting
Yeah, we
the lid
did.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
a
people
long time ago.
comment on that one that the beans look very, very dry. That's because we actually shot the ending the next day when they had cooled down and gotten more solidified. Because they were so hot the first day, you couldn't eat them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would saws be common on the frontier versus axes?
Well, axes are going to be a, a lot more common. But saws are something that they would be able to take to the frontier in the 18th century. They're going to show up in different kinds of settings. When the military goes out, they'll send out their pioneers, the people that are doing construction or road clearing. They'll be mostly working with axes, but certainly they have along other tools, saws. Yeah, I think Lewis and Clark had a whole bunch of tools with them. Saws were one of the things they had.
What would you suggest as a hairstyle for someone who is portraying an early 18th century young Navy officer, such as a lieutenant?
Early 18th century lieutenant. See, early 18th century, if we're talking 20s. Oh, I don't have a good answer for you because that's a bit out of my time period, especially for hairstyles and naval hairstyles at that. Wow.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to go look at portraits and paintings from that time period to get a really good idea. And I would really nail down if you could find one that gets close. It's like, see, that's the one. That's the guy I'm trying to duplicate. There may be 4 or 5 different styles, but you want to find one that you can, easily say identify and say that's the guy I'm trying to be like.
Can beef be salted and preserved in the same manner as you salt pork?
Yes. I think many times the beef salt preservation was a drier beef, where they wouldn't use as much liquid in it, sort of like a hard preservation method instead of you'd almost call what we did there pickling in the time period, even though it didn't have vinegar. A lot of times they call it pickling, just basically in a salt bath. Same technique there. So they would do it both in a dry salting method and in a pickling method with the liquid salt water. I think more often the beef was in a drier salted situation, like we would maybe think of as a salted ham, except sometimes they would use just salt, and other times they might use a nitrate, like a sodium nitrate or a potassium nitrate, so that it stayed its pink color and it sort of penetrated into the meat further.
How would you carry your whiskey in the 1800s?
In a jug, more than likely.
Yeah, I don't know if they mean personally or...
Yeah.
I think he means personally.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll say it like that.
How frequently would people store things in the folds of their tricorns?
Well, you quite often see stuck into tricorns pipes or spoons, where you could carry something in the little. Many times there's little ropes or tape that holds the tricorn things up, and you could put stuff in there. I think there was some reference to somebody hiding tea in their hat, sort of trying to smuggle it. That's the only thing I've got for you on that one.
Let's see. Was sheep meat done the same way as storing beef and pork?
Mutton, yeah. Yeah, they would salt that. I don't think it's as common. You don't see as much reference to that, but I believe they did that with mutton. And there's even a few references to doing it with deer meat.
I don't know nothing about mutton.
We have to put up with this guy.
Let me read some donations.
Please.
$10 from Rosemary Morgan. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Thank you.
Love from New Mexico. Looking forward to the Harvest Festival tomorrow and the baking and roasting, sorghum press running.
Yeah.
What kind of events do you guys participate in for Harvest? And then 50 Danish krones, I believe, from DT, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you. So Harvest festivals.
Well, all around the country this time of year, there are all kinds of great festivals going on. So the Feast of the Hunter's Moon this weekend is a lot like a harvest festival. It's kind of picked out. The Hunter's Moon is that moon. Is it October? Anyway, harvest season. So it's a popular time to have sort of gatherings like that. And there's. I haven't been there for quite a while. Johnny Appleseed Festival is in Fort Wayne. That's close here. That's a real similar kind of festival. And of course, we go to Mississinewa, 1812. It's in the next weekend here in October. It's like a fall festival here for this time period, although they're reenacting a battle that happened in early December. But since nobody wants to come out in early December, they move it to October.
That is in Marion, Indiana.
Yeah, Marion.
That's a great event.
Yeah, it's a fun event.
Great event. Got any more questions? Or
A couple more.
All
Will we
right.
see a continuation of the Getting Started in Living History series? It's a very informative series.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that. It's that was an experimental series to see, whether that was what people on the channel were interested in, and I don't have any great seeing any need for that right at the moment, and I'm not sure how we would expand on that. Did you have any thoughts about that?
Well,
Ryan?
I've been back and forth on that for maybe a year now.
Yeah.
We've talked about it a couple of times, and I just don't know how. I don't know about it in regards to the YouTube channel,
Right.
but I'm sure there's still more use for it elsewhere.
Right, right. And what's up there is there and accessible to folks. It's always, difficult to decide whether or not you're trying to serve, everybody with your channel or just a small quantity of people that have a very particular need. So I'm not sure how I would continue on with that series other than the example sort of interview videos that we do occasionally.
Will you ever be releasing Crimson Bond again?
No.
let's on to our next question.
Yeah, and the next question is,
Aaron just fell off of his chair.
Is there any books on the 18th century that you would recommend for a beginner in the era? History buff recently getting into the 18th century. Thanks for the vids.
yeah, well, we've got a question like this. Was it last week?
Yep.
I had a
Yeah.
question almost exactly like this.
Yeah, yeah, and then I can't remember what book you recommended.
Tidings from the 18th century.
Yeah. I've known a lot of people that have leaned on westward through Kentucky.
Yeah.
too.
Well, if that there's a lot that has to do with what you're interested in the 18th century. That's sort of like saying I'm interested in the 1960s. Well, the 1960s what? And in what, region, what kind of, thing are you most interested in? It's too big of a question. And the 18th century is it's a 100-year question with a lot of different things going in. Are you interested in military? Are you interested in civilian? Are you interested in, which kind of culture are you most interested in? And then, you got to squeeze that down into a time period, even like a decade. It's even better if you can nail it into a year to get an idea about where you want to dig further. And so generally it's very hard to answer that question because there's so much to dig into, so much to learn about. So got to kind of focus, I guess.
One last question.
Okay.
Really enjoy the Frontier series. Will there be more?
Yeah, we're going to keep working on that Frontier series. Some of that stuff is going to be coming out clear up into the spring, and we're going to continue to kind of feel those little pieces out. Even the stuff about the Lives of the Downtrodden was almost kind of part of that same series, and the surveying video that I did about the going and checking out the line between Virginia and North Carolina and surveying that. Both are very touch on that same kind of topic. What's the frontier like? That's always an interest level. So we'll continue to build that series as we go forward. We need to get into some particular skills, and probably that we've got a shoot scheduled for late October, right?
Yes.
And that will have a lot more of that sort of content. He can't even remember now.
We've got so many shoots.
I know.
I've been working on other things. Yes,
right,
we do.
Right. So, yes, we will continue to work on that. So, thank you for all the great questions. So,
Can I do a couple donations?
yeah,
real
go
quick
do a
before we
couple of
head out?
donations.
Great. This is €2 from Timothy Keys again. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Timothy.
How feasible is it to ship your products to Europe? I think it's pretty.
We ship to Europe all the time. The problem is anymore, the shipping rates have gotten fairly expensive. It used to be very easy and fairly inexpensive to ship, even, like small boxes would go for, and now the shipping rates are just out of this world. So it's a little more difficult, a little pricier to do that, and customs can be difficult too. It depends on what country it's going into about how much trouble people have. But you can check out the website, and it'll kind of give you a guess. You don't have to go through complete with an order, but you can order overseas right from our website, and usually it's pretty close to knowing what a order is going to cost.
Right. And then $10 from Keltoid5.
There,
Thank
Joy
you.
5.
I don't know if it's been asked, but what happens to all the egg whites that are cast away? Probably in reference to, we're always in the recipes, it's always like, we just want the yolks. And there's nothing
Yeah,
It's Sophie.
Yeah, well, they had a lot of different ways of getting rid of some of those excess things. They might, put it into a soup to thicken it, or do this or that, or save it back for particular kinds of recipes that you just use whites. So sometimes you would use egg whites for leavening, and you might save back those things. Or if you're making something that uses a whole lot of egg yolks, you would have this sort of companion dish that you always served at the same time that used a lot of egg whites. So they kind of went together. There's something that my wife does. It's like this, it's like, well, I always make this because I always have a lot of leftover whites. So that kind of happens in the 18th century. You can see that might happen as well. And if you had scraps left over, hey, there's always the hogs that need fed with the weirdness, like the whey that they might use that way. So they had a way of getting rid of all those scraps and using them the best way that they could possibly.
I think we're
Okay.
good. Yeah.
So again, thank you to all the great folks who helped us on Super Chat tonight. All the wonderful folks who are there on Patreon supporting us. Am I missing anything?
Come
Brian?
to Feast of the Hunter's
Feast
Moon.
of the Hunter's Moon. Make sure if you're in the area to check out Feast of the Hunter's Moon. I promise you, it's not going to rain the whole time. It'll be really good. I know it's going to be good. The rain just keeps the dust down. If it doesn't rain,
It is handy.
it can be really dusty. So it's been a great time. Thank you guys for visiting us here in the Nutmeg Tavern. Great questions. We always have a lot of fun on Fridays. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching.